And then at around that time, I left radio. About a year after that, I met Rachel. When I moved to Vegas, I had moved clear across the country from New England. And I was working for a communications company. And I was on a business trip to Houston, and I met her in Houston. I won't get into the details of how or why. We can, that's on the podcast. But I ended up meeting her and connecting with her in 2001. And then eventually she ended up moving from Houston. I had seen her in Houston once. She moved to Los Angeles, and then we saw each other a couple times in LA. She came to Vegas to see me. And then we ended up losing touch. She got married, and then in around 2012, we reconnected. And at that time, she told me that she was in this horrible abusive relationship and all this other stuff. And, I wanted to protect her. My marriage had been falling apart. I have a background in martial arts. And at that point, I had been, deep into it for 10, 12 years. And I'm like, I'm not going to stand by and watch her get beaten up. I'm going to stand up for what's right. And she had to talk me out of coming here to deal with that. But I kind of felt like I wasn't going to leave her side. She about a year and a half after that told me that she did get beaten up again, but when they opened her up, they found cancer. That was like 2012. So imagine someone that you really care about is in a relationship where she's getting beaten up by a guy, and then she finds out she has cancer. Well, I'm not the kind of guy that's just going to walk away from that. Mm-hmm. So I stuck around. We had a relationship. I got married again. She claimed she was divorced. Turns out she was never divorced. Turns out the cancer story wasn't true. The guy that allegedly beat her up, her husband, Mark, never laid a hand on her. He's a guy I'm now connected to as a result of this podcast. And the story is just an insane story about this woman who is this pathological and sociopathic liar and narcissist. I mean, she works at the Slow Airport down the road, and she's got a fake pilot's license on her phone. She's got a nursing license. She told people that she worked with, keep in mind, she's a baggage handler and a cross-trained agent. She's got a pilot's license and an RN's license on her phone. False. Never went to law school. Never became a nurse. She worked as a CNA, which is a certified nursing assistant. So she's not a registered nurse. She's like bedpans. Mm-hmm. Here's something to wash your face with. Here's a toothpaste and a toothbrush. Nothing against CNAs, but she presented herself at the Slow Airport as a trauma nurse and a helicopter pilot from Mercy Air. And so at any rate, fast forward 2021, we end up connecting. My parents are up in the Bay Area, and she had been messaging me over that summer. We were talking about like maybe getting together to go to Arizona for a spa, do something, but to see each other. There was always something to me about her. There was something comforting in her voice. There was something comforting about her as a person. I just loved her. I always did. And so we finally settled on August 27th of 2021. We get together down in Santa Barbara. We have dinner. We have a night together. And as we're talking and having a couple drinks, I'm looking at her. I'm thinking, man, you've done well. You're a lawyer. You're doing real estate. You own your own home. The kids, everything is good. I'm single. Does it make sense to maybe try to make this a permanent-ish thing? And so that's where the wheel started. And then we see each other. We talk some more. There's a lot of communication. And then I can't get her out of my head. So I started sending her these messages over the fall. At one point I said, listen, I'm going to Billy Bush's 50th birthday party. It's on the Warner Brothers lot in LA. It's going to be a blowout. And, there'll be a few hundred people, probably some people you may recognize. Just come and let's go. And, Billy and I have been friends for 30 plus years. So she said, I can come to LA that weekend, but I'm running the Boston Marathon on Monday, which is not true. She said, I'll come Saturday for the dinner at Billy's and I'll be your guest. And I said, okay. So leading up to that, that's like the 10th. On the 7th, she sends me a message and she said, I don't think I can continue doing what we're doing. I am looking to love and to be loved, and I want to see what I'm capable of, and I'm not asking that of you, but like she throws that line out to me. And I think she was fishing to see what I was going to say. And she sent that text, and I said, hold on a second. I said, if that's what you're looking for, I've been trying to come up with a way to say those words to you. Like, I'm interested. If this is a posting for a job, I want to apply for it. I'm that guy. I got love to give. I'm a good dude. And she said, I wasn't asking that of you. I said, no, but if you're putting that out there, I'm telling you, I want to be the guy that you pick. She referred to it as my hold my beer moment. Like, hey, hold my beer. I got this.
Yeah.
That led to eventually a conversation like a month later where I said to her, listen, I can't get this out of my head. I'm coming to Santa Barbara. Tell me when I can meet you. November 4th, 2021, we meet in Santa Barbara. I'm going to meet her. Keep in mind, at this point, it's 20 years I've known her. 20 years she's been a friend. We've been connected. And I get to sit to the hotel. She picked me up at the airport. We get to the room. And I get to the room, and I'm in this panic. And I'm not a guy that has anxiety. I have pretty good confidence. But we get there, and I'm like, I'm going to ask her to be my girl. And I feel like I'm 17. I feel like I'm going to screw this up. The guy,
Yeah.
So we get to the room. I said, let's relax for a minute before we go eat and talk. She lays down in the bed, and I like lay on her, like on her stomach or on her, chest. And I'm like, you saw me. I'm a sizable man. I'm not like someone that needs to be held.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I was just in this panic with her. She always did that to me. Always made me nervous. We go to dinner. I tell her what I'm thinking about, and she looks at me like I got 9 heads. She's like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I think we should be together. I explained to her like 3 times. 3. I said, let's just talk about it tomorrow. Like she was interested, but like not sure what I was saying. She never expected me to say that, right? She was basically pushing me away or playing a game. So we have a couple more drinks, go back to the hotel, have our evening, wake up in the morning. She's got to go, I got to go. But we go to Joe's across the street from the Hotel Santa Barbara. We have breakfast. And that's when the SHIT really hits the fan, because she starts with, hey, what are we talking about? What are we doing? I said, I think we're going to be a couple. I think we're going to, we're going to do this. And then, the breakfast gets interrupted. Her phone's ringing. She said, that's Dan Dow on the phone. Because at dinner in August, she said, are you familiar with the Kristen Smart case? And I said, yeah, I'm a true crime nut. Of course I am. She said, well, the district attorney said that, invited me to sit second chair. Second chair is like, you got Chris, I can't pronounce his last name, but the guy that prosecuted that case.
Yeah.
And then, assisting Chris will be Rachel. Like, okay, she was doing real estate law. She had a law background at that point. She was not someone that I knew was a pilot. That scam was not run on me. And then I'm like, okay. So she excuses herself. I eat my breakfast. She comes back. She said, Dan Dow is going to, give up his job. He's going to run for office. And they would like me to, he and a judge would like to meet me and have dinner with me tonight and talk to me about it. I'm like, really? Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm still like in that spot where I'm asking her to be my girl.
I got questions after.
Go ahead. You ask whatever.
So when you were eating breakfast and you were talking about like, okay, so what's going on? You're like, I think we're gonna be a couple. Did you see the phone actually ring?
I heard the phone ring.
You heard the phone ring. So my mind goes through it. Obviously, like there's a lot of false information coming on from the other side. So
yeah,
what went through your mind after you started investigating? And you obviously there's like a rush of different scenarios going through your head. Like, wait, it's like it's clarity, right? And now you start thinking about all these memories, all these little situations, all these little mannerisms or demeanor changes and stuff like that. So what went through your head when you went, okay, I know a lot of things are lies now and I'm trying to expose her. Did you think about that phone call again after that?
I drove in. I literally, we're doing this on Monday night at 7:30 at night. Mm-hmm. I left Vegas this morning at 10:30. I just got here. I just literally rolled in tonight.
Appreciate it.
Of course. And on the way here, I was listening to my own podcast again.
Yeah.
I got through the first season and a good chunk of the second season. And I'm making notes, and I'm now because I didn't really listen to it much after I recorded it. This was done a year ago. Mm-hmm. I wrote the podcast, the first season, in the spring through. It was done at the end of June or beginning of July of 24. We're now a year later.
Yeah.
Right. So I hadn't gone back to listen to the first season. I didn't even want to listen to it when it came out. I'm sick of the sound of my own voice. So I'm driving here, and I'm like, oh, I talked to someone that's coming to this event tomorrow night, and she said, I'm going to re-listen to the podcast on the way in. And I thought, boy, that's a lot of time. Mm-hmm. And then I got in my car this morning. I'm like, maybe I should listen to the first season of the podcast. And now that I'm hearing some of this stuff, it's just what you said. Just what you said. I'm thinking, this phone call at breakfast, like the lawyer, what she was doing. Well, my perspective now, a year later, is that she was setting me up that she was going to have this job, which there's danger involved. You talk to Dan Dow or any of these guys that are prosecutors, and they will tell you that there are always going to be threats around from people you prosecute. May not be every day.
Yeah.
But you talk to prosecutors around the country. I watch a lot of crime TV and have a lot of friends in law enforcement. It's a great job for these guys.
Yeah.
But it's a dangerous job. You screw around with the wrong person, and you end up with some sociopath, you get a knock at the door some night.
And you know what goes through my mind when you're saying that is there's danger involved with that position.
Yeah.
Remember the earlier feelings you had where you had to protect her? You're in martial arts.
Yeah.
All I can think about is she saw that. She sensed that. And then every time there was a pivotal moment between you guys in a relationship, she created danger.
It's very interesting. This is like a therapy. Did you invite me here? Are you with?
No. I've been doing a lot of reading myself, and it's very interesting when I see these dynamics and she's pulling you in the push and pull situation, right?
Yeah.
And so when you said that, and you started off with you want to protect her, she's telling you about an abusive relationship, and she sensed that thing inside you that you want to be protective.
Sure.
So when you're being vulnerable about being a couple, she all of a sudden has a phone call that later on shows danger is involved.
It's true. It's very true, and I don't think I ever looked at it like that, but I'm in a place where I'm starting to show vulnerability, and I've never been a guy that's shown a lot of vulnerability to anybody, but she got me there. Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, there's this protective thing where I remember saying to her, I don't love the idea of you being who you are and taking a job like that. I would worry, calls in the middle of the night, you got to go out, you got to do something, that's a challenge for me. Yeah. But she set me up for the push-pull. Yeah. It's I'm going to use that. Yeah. It's a very interesting and astute observation about the situation. But when I look back on it now, especially listening to the podcast on the way in here, I made a whole bunch of notes, even just to refresh my memory, to go, oh, she did this and she did that. I didn't find out in pieces, Miguel. I found out the day that her husband called me, 2 years to the date that she told me that she was pregnant and that she had cancer. December 20th, 2021. After we had picked each other, a month and a half after that, she said, I think I'm pregnant and I think I have cancer.
All protective. She wants you to feel like you have to protect her, to fix it.
Miguel, where's the tissues? Damn it! I thought I wasn't going to cry.
So no, and that's one of the things. It's not for me. It's not any kind of. In the moment, it's hard to find clarity. Yeah. After, when you're driving, what was it? 6 hours, 7 hours?
7 hours, 7.5 hours.
7 hours. You start really the quiet makes noise. If that makes sense.
The silence at times when I was going through what I thought was her hospital stay was deafening. I shut myself off from friends and family. And driving, it was so weird to me driving here and listening to the sound of my own voice.
Right.
I don't do that. I just don't. I'll listen after I record something. I'll listen to it, but I'll send it to somebody to listen to it, to do quality assurance, to have me change something. I don't want to sit and listen to the sound of my own voice. So to be trapped in the car for a good chunk of the ride, hearing me tell my story, it's almost an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
To hear me go, I waited my whole life for the perfect woman. Like that's how the podcast begins, with those words, right?
Yeah.
And it was strange, and the silence and that time driving here today was maybe good on one hand, and maybe from a mental health perspective, it wasn't the best thing I could have done, just because it got me back into that space. And it kind of like, there's some stuff, I don't think you've listened to the whole podcast, but there's a couple episodes at the end of the first season, 10 and 11, where it's just really emotional. And I left the emotion in the episode, her being pronounced dead and kind of what I went through. And you could hear me choking up. And I was never able to listen to that. Even after I recorded it, I sent it to someone. I said, leave the emotion in. I don't want to hear it. I can't hear it. I listened to it once and I couldn't listen to it without breaking down again months later. I just don't want to hear myself upset. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, yeah. It definitely makes sense. It's one of those things. Well, it's all about the stereotype of being a man too. Like, by you admitting to yourself that you are upset, that you are vulnerable, it's kind of like you're there's no judgment here, but it's like you're painting yourself in a way like the world's going to judge you, even though it's not.
I was humiliated. I was embarrassed that I allowed this to happen. I felt like this is not how a man's supposed to be. I started writing the podcast without thinking I was putting a podcast out that was going to go out to the world.
So how did you start writing it? Like just notes through the phone, paper, pen and paper? Like what was that process starting like?
During the time that I thought Rachel was in the hospital, I had been writing a daily series of love letters to her. I called it Harry Loves Rachel. And they were 80 episodes of them. And it was like the podcast. It was me, and I had never been a storyteller. I'm a voice guy. I do voice work, and I would tell other people's stories, but I never told it in the way that I'm telling my podcast. To me, your voice is an instrument. My voice is an instrument, and I never recognized that in the way that I recognize it and know it now. Now I know, right? When I told those stories to Rachel every day, and they were long, like the podcast. They were 15 to 20, 25 minutes. And I would listen to those sometimes at night. She'd be in the hospital, allegedly. So she would say, I'm going to start today's episode. And I'd say, okay, let's start it at the same time. So we're listening, how romantic. And then she would text me like 35 minutes later or whatever and go, that was beautiful and thank you and I love you and blah, blah, blah. But I was writing a story for nothing, for garbage, for nothing. So, but I realized during that time that I was crafting what I thought was like the greatest love story. Someone is sick. You can't see them. They're in the hospital. You don't know that you're ever going to see them again. And all I'm doing is giving her some memories from our past and creating a story of us in the future. And I wrote, and I never really wrote a lot. I'm not a math or a science guy. I'm an English guy. So I've got a fair command of the language. I've got good grammar. I can write. But I never wrote therapeutically. Yeah. And I started to write those stories. But when everything hit the fan, I thought, I'm going to take Harry Loves Rachel and substitute the S for a D. And it's going to be Harry Loved Rachel. So I wrote what are essentially the first few episodes of this podcast out of anger. It was like, you think you're going to do this to me and I'm not going to speak up about it.
That kind of reminds me of the show You on Netflix. Yeah. The way he talks with his internal voice. He's like, like the way she's like holding that book or something. But then like you kind of get that sense of like he's angry at that person.
It's I really love the show Dexter and I love I've been watching the new one. I was disappointed because I didn't like the one that they did when he was in New York.
I'm not up to date with Dexter.
Skip that. Go to the new one, because the new one's really great, and it's, you know, Michael's narration is lovely. You know, because it's sarcastic. It's, you know, he's a sociopath, so there's never really any warmth to it. But I'm a voice person, so I'm captivated by people's treatment of storytelling.
Yeah.
And to me, when I wrote those stories for Rachel, those, no one will ever hear them. I don't think I'll ever be able to release them. I can't listen to them. But when you listen to me tell those stories, they're heartbreaking and lovely stories. Lovely. And I never wrote, you're sitting here with a guy that never once wrote a love letter to his girlfriend in high school. Like, that's not me. And all of a sudden, because of what we're going through, all this emotion's coming out, and I'm writing a story, and so then I started to turn it into this other thing where there was anger, but there was like calling her out for her BS. And I realized after the first couple episodes, I'm like, you know, I was kind of joking with her about the podcast initially in January, because I didn't know that I had it in me to write whatever. And then I started to write it, and I thought, I can make a podcast about this. Started to write it. I put it out for slow people only. I gave it to Rachel's husband, Mark. He put it out. I put it on a SoundCloud account. But in 2 weeks, I got 15,000 downloads on SoundCloud, and I'm like, wow. And it was what became the first 4 episodes.
Yeah.
It was long and confusing because the story's confusing. So I do that and put it out, and then I'm starting to get pressure from my friends that are in the broadcast industry. Like, you need to do this. You need to keep writing it and put it out. And then I sent the first episode to Billy Bush, and he called me, and he's like, what is this? He's like, I'm involved in this story. She was in my house. I said, yes, she was in your house.
Yeah.
She was. And so he was the one that said, you know, we're going to go to John Sykes at iHeart. We're going to go to UTA. We're going to go to, you know, agency people. I had never listened to a podcast, a true crime podcast, before my podcast. Right. And I still haven't listened. I listened to Serial, you know, whenever it came out 14 years ago, right? That's what I listened to once. But so when I recorded the podcast, there was no music on it. I thought, well, I can just tell my story with no music. And Billy sent the first iteration of the podcast to UTA. They represent Barbra Streisand. They represent LeBron James. They're like the who's who in the entertainment industry of agents. Okay. And that guy responded to Billy, and there was interest from UTA. And then I'm like, oh my God, like if UTA picks me up, that will be amazing. You know, at a minimum to put Billy's name on it. And then the guy from UTA said there needs to be sound design. I'm like, what's sound design? Like, what's that? And, you know, and I talked to a friend of mine. He's like, go put on a Wondery, go listen to Dirty John, go listen to, you know, and shame on me for not doing that. But I still don't listen to it because I don't want someone else's podcast or the way someone else puts their podcast together to influence how I tell my story. To me, I want to tell my story how I tell my story. And I think there's incredible power in telling your story for anyone. Even, you know, I followed you since you launched. And, you know, you obviously don't do a podcast in the same way that I do, or allow people to do podcasts in the same way. But I could see myself sitting in a studio like this and telling my story. It would be vastly different. But there's power in telling your story, whether you're in real estate or you're in business. There's power in being able to do that. You know, I got to cheat because I spent years on the radio. I spent years coaching radio people and doing talk radio. I can sit in a room. It doesn't make, I could go talk to 10,000 people tomorrow at the Staples Center about my podcast, and I wouldn't have nerves. I'd be like, where's my coffee? Where's my water? Who's going to watch my phone and my watch? Right. Who do I trust here? Yeah. Right. Like, that's it. Like, I'll talk to anyone, anytime, and I don't get nervous. But so I do the whole podcast. I do the whole first season. We're going to release it on like October 10th, I think is when it released. And on October 9th, I'm sitting in my backyard at like 9 o'clock at night having a cigar. And all of a sudden I get this wave of anxiety. Like my story, my sad, horrible story is going to be told to the world tomorrow, starting tomorrow. And I thought, is it too late? Is it too late? Can I stop it? And I was really upset. Like, what have I done? What have I done? You know what I mean? Like, I'm hurt. I'm really hurt. And now I'm telling the world that I'm really hurt. And at that point, I didn't understand tell the story and take it back and use it to heal. I thought I understood it, but I didn't.
Did you feel like you felt that anxiety because of the fact that you were going to technically hurt her?
No. I never once thought about hurting her as a reason not to do it.
Okay.
I thought I'm going to expose her. I thought I'm going to do this. I started the social media a year ago on her birthday, and I did it deliberately so she would know what was coming.
This episode is brought to you by the White Wave Wellness. Choose to live a healthy and fulfilling life. Wellness is more than being free from illness. It is a process of change and growth towards a mentally and physically healthy lifestyle. Reach out to Jennifer Hale to learn more about how this water can change your life.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Has she expressed that she's hurt?
Yes. When I played her The Harry Loved Rachel in January of 2004, a month after she was caught, she said to me, and this is in a promo that's running right now, but I've used it in the podcast.
Yeah.
She said, hearing you make this story, you'll have to beep this out, about my fucked up life makes me sick.
I don't bleep anything out.
Good. Hearing you tell the story about my fucked up life makes me sick. And I thought, you kind of deserve it. And she said, I deserve this. So in a way, I held it over her head. Probably there was some manipulation involved because I wanted the truth. I wanted some answers. It's like, I have this thing. And it wasn't the cleanest way to do it. And then there was this thought, because she had used the threat of suicide on a number of occasions after she was found out. She had used the threat of unaliving herself.
Right.
A number of occasions. In the hospital, had told me it happened over the years. And I said to a friend of mine, what if I do this podcast? And what if she does something to herself?
Which brings me back to the question, did that factor into the anxiety of the night before it went live?
Not even one bit. I thought to myself, because I did worry about it initially, and 2 or 3 friends, including one mental health professional, and my friend Matt, who helps to write and produce the podcast, he said, listen, narcissists are the cockroach of the world. They always find a way to survive.
Yeah.
There's always a different talk track. She needs the attention. She listens to this podcast. She may not say she listens. In every single video that I put out, I've never said this on Instagram or on the podcast. Every single video that I put out, I look at the follows and all that stuff. There's a little arrow at the bottom of the video.
Oh, the shares.
Shares. Yeah. Always. One share. Someone is sharing these videos.
Right away.
Right away. Always once.
Yeah.
It's Rachel. I talk to Rachel. Right? And I'm talking, even if I'm not talking to Rachel, I'm talking at Rachel. Because she needs to be exposed for the damage she's done. At this point, it's not even about me. Like, I was nervous, I was anxious, all that stuff. I got past that. The podcast came out, it was well received. I think by the end of summer, I'll have 1 million downloads. The podcast. I mean, imagine that.
Yeah.
Like, it's me. Like, I didn't end up I didn't take an agent. I didn't take any marketing money from Billy. I didn't do anything. Any money that I spend on the podcast with sound design or anything, it's money out of my pocket. I don't make any money on this podcast. But I'm going to be at 1 million downloads by the end of the summer for a podcast. Like, I get it. Like, Dirty John gets a million, or the Dateline, Keith Morrison, whatever. A million downloads is insane. So I don't worry about Rachel doing something. She's a narcissist. She will find a way to survive and run a different talk track on someone else. By the way, when she married Mark, who she's still married to, 7 months later, she ran off and married another guy in Michigan at the same time. She was married to 2 guys at the same time.
Yeah, I remember that part.
2000.
Yeah.
She was married to a guy in Houston who was a cop and a district attorney and now a criminal lawyer. And she cheated on him and left him. She, ran the pregnancy scam and the cancer scam on a number of us. She is a con artist. She's a seasoned con artist. So
let me ask you this, because you're saying you're past that, right? You're just trying to expose her. You're not. I mean, I know there's some level of anger still. There's always going to be some frustration, some regret, but at some point, can this story be an excuse to keep talking about her?
You mean, it's funny.
What's the end game here?
At one point, when she tried to shut me down, she went to the Paso Robles Police Department. They were investigating Mark for a whole bunch of shit. Mm-hmm. And then she said to them, by the way, there's this, Instagram account that I want you to get shut down. He's telling all these lies about me. They're like, why would we shut this down? What kind of lies? And she said, well, he's telling people that I said I had cancer or that I was a lawyer. She said, I'd never have in my life told anyone that I had cancer or that I was a lawyer. I have the police report from this. Mm. The police, when they talked to me about it, they said, what's your end game? What you just said. I said, my end game is to expose her. Okay. Right? I'm not going to give her last name. I'm not going to show her face completely with her eyes. Right. But my goal is to expose her for the narcissist she is, for the woman who just leaves nothing but a trail of destruction. And I feel, it's funny, I feel like in a way I'm a little angrier than I normally am because I wrote in and I listened to 15 or 16 episodes of my podcast, so it's fresh in my head now. Yeah. But, so the police, they hear that, and then a week after that, they call her sister, who, by the way, Rachel told me her sister died in a car crash.
I remember that part, yeah.
They call her sister, and they say, why don't you have a relationship with Rachel? She tells, this is in the police report. She said, well, Rachel told the whole family that she had cancer twice and that she went to law school. The police have investigated Rachel. There's an ongoing thing right now. I think this is going to blow up in her face. Mm. My goal is to get her stopped. She took $30,000 from Caps Low. She never paid that money back. They sued her. She owes the state of California around $90,000 right now. She got an EBT card in 2023 when she and Mark were still living together. Mark was making good money with his business. She gets a benefit card. She ran for the water board down in Santa Clarita in 2006 or 7, and she lost, and she took campaign funds.
So when all this information is coming out, right? Like right now it's flowing out of you. You have it memorized. What got you to the point where you had to be a detective for yourself?
When I realized that she was lying to me about everything, and I started to hear these stories from Mark and from other people, women that she works with at the airport, it's a great point, by the way. I love that because my story has gone from this story of heartbreak and heartache
to you had to figure it out. Well, you have to be a detective. You got to solve you got to solve the mystery. There's
a true crime story that's unfolding within my true crime story. Yeah. So at some point over the summer, when I was just about done recording, a bunch of these things came out, and then I began to do court record searches, and I began to do a whole bunch of stuff. I'm embarrassed to say this because I should have used it while I was with her, but for a number of years, I've had a private investigator license, which I don't use. Mm. Maybe I should have used it.
Maybe.
But I put that into play. I did a very deep background check. There were things that happened while she was allegedly in the hospital and while she was sick from running a background check that I found out about her. And I started to question her about stuff, and she would always Be like, why are you asking me about Mark? Every time you do that, you're bringing him into our life. She was gaslighting me. Mm-hmm. And so when the wheels came off for her, I was wanting to talk to her and I was wanting to get answers. But at the same time, I went to school to see what other horrible things she did to people. Like being married to 2 guys at the same time. It was 3. It took that guy, Brian, in Flint, that she married 7 months after she married Mark. It took that guy 3 years to get divorced from her because she avoided service. Mm-hmm. He found out. Rachel left Los Angeles, went to Brian in Flint. She's in the shower one day. Mark calls her phone like 20 times. Brian answers the phone and says, hello. Mark says, who's this? And Brian says, I'm her husband. Mark says, I'm her husband.
Yeah.
In the history of arguments, no one's ever won that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm her husband.
So there's 2 other guys kind of involved, right? And some similar scenarios where, there's this one person that lied to them. Who did you lean on when you felt this feeling of being lied to?
I internalized a lot. And in hindsight, it was a mistake. There's a therapist that's on in season 2, episodes 10 and 11. And when I sent her the podcast, she's a friend of mine from, back where I grew up. And when I sent it to her, I said, I want to have you on the podcast. I want you to listen to a story. And I want to have you on and talk about the narcissist. And she said, okay, send me what you have. And she gets back to me like a week later. She listens to the whole thing. She's like, oh, honey, this is not a narcissist. This goes far deeper than narcissistic behavior. This is sociopathic, pathological. Like she kept me thinking, Miguel, for 563 days that she was in the hospital in protective isolation and couldn't walk, couldn't talk, and was sick with cancer. Who does that to somebody? She knew it was destroying me. She knew that I was in danger from a mental health perspective, and she continued to do it. She counted on me from early on when she told me she had cancer and she was getting beaten up to never walk away from her, to always be by her side. What she never counted on was getting caught being a liar and then me telling my story.
Yeah.
And now there's no stopping me. Like, what's she going to do? She's going to sue me? Are you aware that she destroyed all the evidence on her phone? She wiped her iCloud account out.
Like the interactions between you guys? Or what do you mean?
With everybody, with Mark, with me. Okay. She can't, the defense for libel or slander is what's called absolute truth. What's she going to do? Sue me? I have every single text, every single everything in this phone, every handwritten doctor's note, every fake cancer picture here, backed up 6 ways to Sunday in case I get mugged while I'm at Paso. But I am not getting mugged. Yeah. But what's she gonna do? What's she gonna say? Mm-hmm. No. If I have 2 attorney friends that are sharks, that are like, let her sue you. I can't wait to depose her. One of them's been my friend for 20 years. He's like, I can't wait to depose her. Tell me when
they want to get their hands on the information. And if it's not there, that's a weird coincidence.
Yeah. If she wants, listen, this is trouble for her right now. But if she wants trouble, again, I'm not inviting that, but go ahead and hire an attorney and see how that goes.
Yeah.
It doesn't go well. But I'm taking back my power. And, again, I may be a little.
That's a good thing you said right now, because that was what I was going to ask you. When did you find out you were actually taking back your power? It's not when you start writing the story. There's something else, right?
Yeah, you know what it is. It's when I let a few people that I really trust listen to it, and when I told them about it. Think about this. I found out she had been cheating on me in December of 2023. I didn't tell a single friend of mine. I told one person. I didn't tell a single friend of mine for 6 months or 7 months. I was humiliated. The way that I told my friend Matt, who's a producer of the podcast, is I sent him episode 1. I sent him a text and I said, listen, something's happened. And I'm sorry for not talking to you, and don't be angry with me about it. But I wrote a story about it because I can't text about it and I can't talk about it. You can't ask me any questions about it.
You found a way to do it, though.
And I realized that my power is in opening my mouth. My voice is my instrument. My voice is my power. My heart and my heartache powered me. And now my brain and my will are powering me through this. And I'm nearing what I think is the end of the story. I mean, I hope it ends with her arrest, but I think I'm getting close to the end.
Yeah.
My friend Matt said, listen, season 2 is not it. Season 3, jail. That's the last season.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully that happens. Hopefully she picks up a couple charges. 9 false police reports. She's done all kinds of shenanigans.
So talk to me a little bit about, I want to say Billy Bush. You mentioned him a couple times.
Yeah.
How involved is he besides being in the story? Because I think on your Instagram bio, it says producer or...
Yeah, he's the executive producer.
Okay.
You know, it's funny. We've been around and around. I said, listen, let's do a Zoom. You're part of this story.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, I want your success. This is not my story. Anything that's major, I speak with him about involving the podcast, but he's been kind enough to give me his name. And he's someone that I've known for, 31 years. He is someone that I love dearly. He's one of those guys, like, after I talk to him, like, before I hang up the phone, I go, great to hear your voice. I love you. I love you too. You know what I mean? That's like, that's the nature of my relationship with Billy. And it always has been from the time I met him. We've always been, it was one of those friendships that I knew would always be there.
Yeah.
And when this happened with Rachel, he was so upset for me and for her. And he's a prayer guy. You know what I mean? He would pray for her. And like, when I had to go, I didn't tell him for 6 months. When I sent it, I did the same thing with him that I did to Matt. I copied and pasted that message. And when I said, do me a favor, he's got a little ADD. And I said, Bushy, just listen to it. Just 10 minutes of it. Just listen to it. And then he called me back 30 minutes later. He said, what is this? And I said, it was all a lie. He said, oh my God. He's like, you need to tell this story. You need to tell it. And I said, I don't know if I can. I don't know that there's an audience for it. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, at that point, I still didn't know. Mm-hmm. And it was Billy's encouragement in a way, like, we're gonna, he went to John Sykes, who runs iHeart. He went to, UTA. He went to a whole bunch of places for me looking at options. I ended up at Amazon's Art19 platform. And I ultimately not having an agent in this is good because I get to do as I want to do.
Right.
And, Billy's been helpful, but his involvement is minimal. I'll send him a couple videos here and there and we'll talk about it. But he was upset. But his goal, for me, what he has said to me is, I don't want to be involved in it. It's not a place for my face.
Yeah.
This is your story. I want your success. You let me know what you need. And I don't need anything but his continued support. That's it. He didn't put money in it. He didn't do anything other than making some phone calls for me. He's opened a couple of doors. I had to have a discussion or two with some people. There's a voice that you hear in the second season of the podcast and in some of these promos that's a female voice. It's Rachel's voice. Rachel sent me a tape. I have a tape of Rachel. I'm an audio guy. I turned around, I entered it into my audio clone device thing 30 times and built a stable clone of Rachel's voice. Yeah. I had that clone say a bunch of stuff and I sent it to Mark and he's like, why are you sending me this? He's pissed off at her. He's like, this is gross. Why are you sending this to me? And I said, I just wanted to make sure I could fool you.
Oh my goodness.
But Billy, helped in that decision-making process. I was nervous about the clone for Rachel. I had to find a voice to be the doctor, Dr. Holt, and the guy that hired me out of high school in radio to work full-time is a guy named Jay Dean. And I've always loved his voice. And when I was talking to him about the story at one point, like 2 days later, the light went off in my head as I was thinking about season 2 and Dr. Holt. And I'm like, oh, you're going to be Dr. Holt. And I sent him the opening of season 2, episode 1 is this monologue from the doctor after Rachel was allegedly pronounced dead. And it's Jay Dean's voice. And when I heard his treatment of Dr. Holt, I was moved. I was like, oh my God, you're Dr. Holt. So every time I hear Dr. Holt's voice, I hear this guy who gave me my shot in radio and a voice that has provided incredible comfort for me.
So it's interesting because you said you don't like hearing your own voice, but yet you've created brought in other characters in the podcast that give you motivation to keep going. It's like you drowned it out.
Yeah. To me, there's no way to tell the story without me telling the story.
Yeah.
Aside from hiring somebody.
Right.
Like, I like to go on podcasts. Like I love Adam Montiel, from the beginning.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah.
And there's a funny story about Adam because we got connected, and then once we got connected, I was supposed to be on his show on September 4th, 2024. Mm-hmm. I'm a steel trap. The night before, he sent me a message. He said, hey, I'm getting these messages about a restraining order and an abusive relationship and this and that. And I'm like, that's not me. That's her husband. That's a case involving her husband.
Was it promoted that you're going to be on his show? Is that why? Okay.
So he promotes that I'm going to be on.
And little do people know, we didn't promote this.
Yeah, and he sends me a message. He's like, dude, we're going to put the brakes on this. I didn't know you were this guy. And I said, I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
That's a different guy. But what he did before he had me on was he actually, and I didn't know he was doing this, but he reached out to Billy Bush on Instagram. And he said, hey, this is who I am. I'm up in, San Luis Obispo, and I'm, inquiring about Harry and the story and blah, blah, blah. And Billy, he never responds to me this quick. He responded to Adam almost immediately and said, yeah, I know Harry. I know the story. And, any questions you want me to answer, I'm happy to answer. But Billy opened the first door. Adam was the first person. And then we had this interview and we have stayed in touch. I mean, I've got what I consider a friendship, with him now. He's just a sweet guy and our backgrounds are similar. And, last time I was here in May, we got together for a drink. It's no podcast, just, a drink and hang out. But, to me, being able to tell this story wherever I can is most important, because taking back my power, especially as a man, 85% of true crime listeners are women. And I hear from a lot of women that will talk about being victims of narcissists, but I don't hear from a lot of men, because it's not cool to go, I got hurt. I got my heart broken. This woman had me thinking she was in the hospital for a year and a half, and I gave everything. Most scams, Miguel, involved money or something tangible, property, a boat, a car, a house. This was, this sucks because she did this to me for attention. I have a text that says, as she's explaining to Mark why she did this, and she's talking about the different men she cheated with, I have her writing saying, I lied to Harry about cancer for attention. Imagine that. She lied to me about cancer, had me in a place where I was thinking seriously 2 or 3 times about the worst possible harm I could do to myself because I didn't want to be here. And she knew that I was there. And she did that for attention. And she's dangerous. She's really dangerous. If you're willing to do that to somebody, you need help. And the problem with narcissists and sociopaths is that they don't ever ask for help. And as a man, to be a victim survivor of a woman who is a predator is an embarrassing thing as a guy. And I would encourage, if I could do one thing with this, it would be to reach out to men. I appreciate all my supporters and all the women, and there's a huge group of people up here in Paso. I call them my cancer warriors, but a group of women. There's like, and they rallied around me in the beginning. They were so furious about this. But like, where are the guys that have been hurt or have been, victims or now survivors of this? And they're not out there. I got a message on Sunday for the first time from a guy on the East Coast who wrote to me, and he said, I was trying to get through the entire podcast before writing to you, but I can't. He said, I'm on episode 15. There are, 5 more to go for me right now. And he said, I had to reach out to you to tell you how sorry I am and how heartbreaking your story is. And like this man, like showing emotion and empathizing with me made me feel better than any message from a woman that I've ever received, because it's I don't know if he's been hurt, what the situation is, and I'm not trying to make new friends. I'm trying to connect with people that are in a similar situation, but to get an empathetic, long, detailed message about the situation. And he was really kind and funny. Like at the end, he said, my girlfriend loves your voice. And she said, I could even get bad news delivered by him and it wouldn't bother me. So, but it's just, to me, men need to take their power back. I mean, everyone does from people like this. But to me, I'm sitting here in your studio in Paso, and I'm thinking, by doing this, I am taking my power back.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to stop taking my power back. And I'm not going to stop telling my story. I'm not going to stop encouraging people to tell their story. If you've got a story, you want my help with a story, tell your story. I don't know how, in what different terms I could say that to you or anyone else.
I think that's the perfect moment to wrap it up and let the audience sit with that.
I've been following you, and I want to say a couple of things to people that follow you. There is power. If you're a business person, this is a very one-off episode,